I loved SpongeBob SquarePants even prior to the 2005 season. An animated classic on Nickelodeon, or dubbed as a Nicktoon, excuse me, that debuted on its channel in May of 1999 and still airs today, making this one of the longest running animated shows behind Family Guy, Arthur, South Park, and The Simpsons. When Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob and a marine biologist, stepped down in late 2004, pretty much after the release of the movie, Paul Tibbitt, who also worked for the show, was promoted to be the replacement and showrunner and hired untalented writers, as well as writers that had their careers go down as the acting career of Rob Schneider, making the new SpongeBob series a complete and utter joke. You see, it all started in 2008, a few years after Mr. Hillenburg called it quits. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Animation Studios, and I used to work with these hairy, dirty, sadistic, untalented, egotistical writers. I was an intern so that I could live on my own while going to college, and I proved to my parents that I could work my ass off and make a living and become a cartoonist. Hey, maybe I could be like Walt Disney. Who knows? It won't happen. And that's why I was stuck at Nickelodeon, the home of canceling the Angry Beavers, Cat Dog, Ren and Stimpy, and Rocco's Modern Life. So that way the network could make more money. Why? Viacom. That's why. I had planned a lot of episode ideas on the top of my head. The one I planned was how Patrick becomes nice to Squidward, and does the same vein as the 1999 to 2004 episodes. That episode was never realized. Eventually, on the same day as I planned the story, I took a break and I wandered into the workspace hallway looking for my Wumbo coffee mug, which is where I came across a DVD copy of SpongeBob that was made exclusively for the network prior to the airing. Who was holding it, you ask? Well, it was one of the writers of the episode, SpongeBob, Casey Alexander. He pretty much just stood there drinking coffee while looking into nothing like a retard. This is my perfect opportunity to steal the copy while he stared into space and replace it with some Family Guy DVD, expecting to get something like a raise from the chairman at Nickelodeon. I even threw a water bottle at a security camera and avoided security guards who were chasing after me. I ran to my complex apartment next door to the studio. As I was ready to open the DVD, it turned out the DVD cover was poorly made MS Paint version of SpongeBob, like it was made by that guy who made Dolan Duck or Gooby or something. Yes, it's Sir Pello. In this picture, we see SpongeBob looking down at his shoes, disheveled, and pretty much had badly drawn bruises on his left eye. That's not all. There were bold words in New Times Roman font saying, "The Sponge Episode." Insert the pool boy's name here, made this. Now, I knew nothing about them. They probably one of the people in the last place I visited. I have no idea. Oh, and the happy face looked like Patrick from the show. I don't know why, so don't fucking ask. I put the DVD into my portable DVD player since I was too lazy to put this on my DVD player on my TV. It didn't work. That, my friends, was legitimately weird, since there were no scratches on the disc. I put it on my perfectly cool-looking MacBook laptop and nothing. So finally, I put on my DVD player on the television. Strangely, it played normally. The opening theme to the show was weird too. It starts with a stock image of a pirate you would normally see in the show, with his lips moving realistically, but instead, we see George Jetson pictures and what I assumed that were taken off the Google images due to the minor pixels that I could see. He says, "Are ya ready, kids?" in a similar vine to the actual pirate from the show. Hell, he even had the same voice. Well, kinda. So anyway, after George Jetson asked, the kids started laughing hysterically. The kids continued laughing as they sound more demonic, as it overlapped the audio for the animation of the intro, until the very end of the intro, where instead of SpongeBob playing his nose as a flute, he vomited through the screen. After that, disturbing version of what seemed to be a lovable intro for a show aimed for a demographic of children, the title card read, "Oh Patrick," while the background image was of Squidward on fire layered behind the title. As we open up SpongeBob in the Pineapple House under the sea, we see the house inside. If you think the intro was weird, check this out. Gary the Snail was shown that he had killed himself by placing a gun to his head, and we see snail blood. Off screen, we could hear what seemed to be sounding like Patrick yelling in agony, "What the fuck?" 5 times. The next part gets more twisted and menacing. We see SpongeBob in the kitchen looking unusually nervous, as he has photorealistic eyes. That's not all. The animation on the character himself looked cheap, like something off of a B movie. He goes to the counter to find Kelpo cereal with barnacle chips on the side. While that happens, we see SpongeBob's hands, which look like realistic yellow hands, like they were paper cuts or something. Seriously, the animation for the characters looked completely lazy, unfinished, and cheap. Like Mr. Krabs. So, SpongeBob got ready to eat the cereal until he looked at the clock on the wall and it said 7 a.m. He then says, "I gotta clean up," and laughs. Unfortunately, it wasn't the trademark laugh we were used to. I assume that this was like if Woody Woodpecker was diabolically laughing while an alien pops out of someone's chest. I know that it was Tom Kenny, the voice actor behind him, but in this one, he sounded like he was disgusted, tiresome, and even sad. Sounded like Urkel from Family Guy having a stroke. He goes to the bathroom as he's getting ready to take a shower. He doesn't even turn the water on, he just takes a piss in the shower. He was pissing on 2 legs while washing hands with piss. To add insult to injury, we see SpongeBob's yellow spongy pingus. What? Nobody wants to see SpongeBob's dick, not even on a kid's show. So he walks downstairs and he runs to Patrick. You'd think in the scene he would have the same voice from the episodes. Hell, even the same voice from the beginning where he yelled, "What the fuck?" Strange to announce, it wasn't the same voice. He actually sounded like a pissed off white trash German. "Wie halte SpongeBob? We will go to the house of Squidward to go jellyfishing?" screamed Patrick as he ran to beat up sandy ass Cheeks, the Texas squirrel with a baseball bat, as we hear realistic cries from her and we see blood and gore, which some consisted of squirrel organs. And I question if this was meant for kids. SpongeBob smiled like nothing was happening. Patrick then says, "I want to make the Krabby Patty for the Führer." I noticed right away that he said the leader in German, leading to the point where he may be related to the biggest psychopathic potatoes of World War II that killed millions and millions of people. Adolf Bitchler. But I knew it was a common German word for leader as a whole, so I thought it was okay. So I signed with relief. So we see Patrick go to the Krusty Krab. Well, it turns out that he was actually going to the house of Squidward Tentacles. Squidward looked disappointed here and wanted to shove his clarinet up his ass like a dildo. Okay, I guess. Oh, but wait. It gets worse. We see a close-up of Squidward's butt as he literally shoves a clarinet up his ass. Holy snap crackle pop Rice Krispies. Patrick comes in, as I assume that this came off the idea that I pitched earlier that day, so somebody probably stole my idea. But anyway, said, "Will you play Solitude in E minor? It will make me laugh very hard." Squidward said, "Who gives a rat's fucking ass about that? I banged Roger Bupkis up his anal pads." What? I mean, this is a kid's cartoon! And not to mention, he even said the name of the voice actor who played him, mentioning that he banged him? What? Then, with an unknown fanfare or hint of announcement, he took a gun out of nowhere, probably his cock, and he shot Mr. Crack while smiling. SpongeBob comes out of nowhere while this happens, talking abruptly. "Patrick, would you like some chocolate-covered?" This was the point I had to eject the DVD. Then Squidward takes out a gun as mistaken by a clarinet. He actually shot himself. This song, the Campfire song played in the background, but instead of the words campfire, it was replaced by satanic, as if this episode was a lost episode. As this was going on, he immediately grabbed a Krabby Patty out of nowhere and started doing things that I can't even mention because, yeah. SpongeBob follows suit. Then they grabbed kitchen knives and stabbed each other, peeling their skin to the Krabby Patty, as we see realistic sea animal skeleton bones. I said, I had enough of this bullshit! I got ready to eject the DVD when I saw the most nightmarish image of everyone's favorite cartoon characters. SpongeBob and Patrick eventually go to the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krabs comes in jerking off in public without noticing. They were... oh my fudging Pop-Tarts. They were in a three-way gorgy. So, finally, I got so upset I ejected the disc. I couldn't stand another minute of this terrifying lost episode. I threw it in the trash and walked away when suddenly the DVD started talking. In an extraterrestrial voice, I come in peace, said the DVD. I want you to take me to my master. I shat my pants that time. I mean, DVDs can talk. They come to life. I said, who are you? Are you possessed? I can throw holy water on you in the name of Christ. The DVD then screamed, You better take me to my maker or I'll shove Krabby Patties up your ass along with Squidward's clarinet. Ree. I ran away from the DVD as far as possible, but the fucker chased after me with a clarinet. Well, shit. It was the most realistic depiction of Squidward's clarinet. That's because it is. You're probably thinking to yourself, big deal, it's basically a real-life slapstick. You'll get over it. Not even. He hit me with the clarinet as hard as he could several times, causing me to suffer in a coma. During that time, the last I heard was the DVD laughing maniacally at me, with the last thing I saw before closing my eyes and fainting being the DVD burning the apartment down with a match, which he had on for some reason, causing the residents' bodies falling down the floor with their remains burning to the ground in a morbidly grotesque way. I woke up in the hospital. I thought I was in a safer place. I heard footsteps from the nurses. They opened the door, and these sexy, beautiful, big-boob nurses, similar breast size you'd see in video game characters like Bullet Rain, Lara Croft, Samus, or Jill Valentine. Oh, they were delicious. I mean, they have the same voice as the girl from those video games, so I guess they exist. Anyway, it turns out that they were holding Krabby Patties this whole time. They injected Krabby Patties into my heart, finishing off by putting stitches in my chest, and for 14.5 hours. It was success, according to the doctors, announcing me that I only have 5 days left to live. The 5 days. The 5 days. I went back to my apartment, which seemed to look normal, like the firemen came in and fixed everything, blowing the fire out or something. On the first day, I told the internet via typing this forums and whatnot on my most tragic nightmare ever. The second day, I went to McDonald's to order, get this, a pepperoni pizza. Day 3, I made a YouTube videos on how I was suffering through my worst life ever. And day 4, I took my part-time job to babysit a little kid next 3 doors, watching Spongebob, although I turned away trying not to think of that lost episode I witnessed, though, as with the possessed DVD, which led me to day 5. I got pissed off. It was a final straw and the last resort. I found the possessed DVD, which was laying on the floor that day for some odd reason. I drastically marched to Nickelodeon Animation Studios, demanding what was the purpose of making this godforsaken, horrifying excuse of a DVD. All upset, I stormed into the office, not thinking about coffee, mind you, and I yelled at the man who was in charge of Nickelodeon. What the freaking heck is this? Are you freaking high? This is a massacre that damaged my property. He said nothing, ignoring me. Well, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you ignoring me? I want to talk to your manager, I said as a Karen. Still, no response. Still ignoring me. I had super enough. I turned his chair around, which revealed Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob. Looked like he had snorted cocaine through his nose, and he looked like his skin color was yellow because he had leprosy or some shit like that. He had a white and brown work suit with a red tie. He was accompanied by Bill Faberbake, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, who, if I'm not mistaken, is the voice of Patrick Star. He also had a different skin color than the usual skin color of a human. He was pink, wearing no shirt, gained 250 pounds, was bald-headed, or probably point-headed like in an SNL skit of the Coneheads, had pimples and scars all over his face, and he had the same pants as Patrick, purple and green all over. I know they looked menacing, but Bill looked worse than Tom. Tom made his menacing maniac laugh like in the lost episode, not his trademark laugh, while Bill started to use a Krabby Patty to shove right onto his, you-know-what. I was shuddering. A real-life giant crab comes in walking in wearing the same suit as Mr. Krabs. He lunged Krabby Patties at me. I grabbed the DVD and threw it at Tom, Bill, and a giant realistic crab, and suddenly they, as well as the office itself, exploded with Krabby Patties disguised as real burgers, resulting in me getting fired, losing my job, losing my apartment rent, but that's okay, because the U.S. government hated me to begin with, and reached me to unemployment, so I moved to an unknown island. There I went down to the ocean, dreaming of being a marine biologist, as I tried to follow in the footsteps of Steven Hillenburg. But the life crew looked at me, had painted me yellow with holes, forced me to live in a giant pineapple under the sea, holding my breath underwater. A loud, fat Hispanic man used his waterproofed film camera to film me as Hispanic kids laughed at my misery. I couldn't breathe underwater. I tried taking a breath, but I ended up drowning and fainted again. I woke up again, finally breathing out of the water. I was lying down in a strange collection of pineapple seeds. As I looked up, down, left and right, I was in a fruit salad. There was Mexican cheese, green spinach, croutons, and ranch. What the ever-living fuck? I yelled as I tried to wake up from the shit your pants scary nightmare. It turned out it wasn't a dream. It was reality. Even more realistic than the eye can see. I walked down the fruit salad, witnessing a huge Krabby Patty. I yelled constantly, "Oh my gosh!" Up to the point where I screamed, "I'm not zesty! I'm trapped by a fruit salad and a motherfucking cheeseburger!" A familiar German voice that seemed to be taken from a lost episode spoke to me. "No, no, 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 no. You don't understand. She is not the cheeseburger. She is a Krabby Patty." It was a giant-sized version of Bill Fartknocker that I saw from the office at Nickelodeon. When I ran to the top of the Krabby Patty trying to find a way out, he started lifting the Krabby Patty that I was standing on as my heart skipped beating, and he began putting it on his body, humping it down the whole way. All of this made me deeply realize that cheeseburgers are pretty much evil, as with everything else I encountered. Maybe the nurses didn't have big butts. Maybe I didn't sneak a Family Guy DVD in front of Casey Alexander. Maybe I didn't have college money or any education money for that matter. Maybe I didn't become a marine biologist. Maybe I don't sound like Charlie from Penguin Zero. Maybe I don't own a portable DVD or a MacBook because I'm poor. Maybe I didn't hype all this shit down. Maybe I'm not exactly the critical version of whatever. This was the correct term for me to say. We are not normal. We are insane. Stephen Hillenburg and Nickelodeon both lied to us, newer and older generations alike. They won't care about fun. You know, F is for friends who do stuff together, U is for you and me, and it's for anywhere and any times at all down here in the deep blue sea. They just want cash, which explains why Viacom owns the shit out of us. This cartoon lied to us as kids and adults, the same company that bought copyright infringement to a whole new level on YouTube. I don't know. All I know is that we're not normal humans. We're not even humans at all. We're all skeletons. Nothing but spooky, scary skeletons. If you have a next door neighbor or a family member or a closet friend that you have, be kind by treating them as a skeleton's inside and outside, because there will come a day that the skeleton is you. In fact, you might be a skeleton that you already are. The credits rolled in my life, resulting in the end of my existence with the words, SpongeBob SquarePants, in charge of Nickelodeon, bacon, executive orders, potato pancake, Osama bin Potato, Joseph Stalin, Lee Harvey Potato, whoever else, and Daisy. And prior to finding out who wrote and directed this, I shuddered. In deep concern, the Pooh Boys told me bad news. Written and directed by me. In other words, the Pooh Boys wrote and directed this. But I also did too. The end. Well, I bet that some of you probably weren't expecting me to go out of my way and re-narrate this pasta again. Wow, talk about an old-time favorite. Probably one of the first creepypastas I actually sat there and narrated on my channel that was actually funny pasta related. Now, before I actually get into this review, I want to make it excessively clear that funny pastas are not really something I want to sit there and stick with. This is just one of those exceptions to the rules. Oh, and any of you who want to go out and check out the original story of the original author, I will make sure to link and give credit to the original poster on DeviantArt for creating this masterpiece. Now, normally how I would do these reviews when it comes to regular creepypastas is sitting there and obviously separating them into separate parts and, you know, pointing out, you know, the characters, all these things, the cliches, the plot line. However, given the fact that this is a funny pasta, I have a different way of doing this. So basically it's just going to be one big review, because in all due honesty, funny pastas and creepypastas themselves are two very different kind of species of stories. So yeah, so basically anything relating to the cliches or things of that nature will not be mentioned, because obviously funny pastas are primarily meant to sit there and make fun of these kind of things. And that's exactly what this creepypasta actually managed to do. Or scratch that, funny pasta, or troll pasta. Let's call it troll pasta. You know what this troll pasta actually sit there and managed to do? It managed to sit there and take everything about SpongeBob and create this giant morph, this giant mass of pure, unadulterated comedy. I mean, I remember the first time I sat there and I read this story afterwards, I was dying laughing, because this story was just that damn funny. I mean, everything with it just being so extremely crazy, or zany, out of the ordinary. It reminds me of a creepypasta. Well, creepypasta is written by Dave the Useless, which is definitely what this story was inspired by. No, it wasn't actually written by Dave, and it wasn't written by anyone else who was associated with Dave, at least as far as I know, but if I am wrong, let me know. But specifically, this pasta really manages to actually go out of its way and provide a nice little level of comedic effect to it. One good example of these would have to be the startup introduction and everything. You know, it started off pretty well for the most part, going into detail about the series about SpongeBob and everything, and the story basically just kind of going downhill afterwards. And basically the author going on and ranting about how SpongeBob is shit, which I'm going to be honest with all of you. This is going to be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I don't like the way SpongeBob is now at all. I can't stand the freaking over exaggeration of the characters now. I can't stand the animation style, which does not in any way fit whatsoever. It's basically... SpongeBob nowadays has quite literally turned into the Ren and Stimpy version of SpongeBob, and personally for me, I'm not a fan of that, like, at all. I mean, look at the animation yourself and tell me that it's not off. So, of course, obviously, after a while, before Miss Steven Hillenburg, rest in peace, by the way, finally came back into the series until his unfortunate passing. The series, obviously around that time, especially after 2005, was really starting to go downhill. And that's just 100% fact. And even to me, at one point it was getting good again, but afterwards it just became shit again. So, there's that. But yeah, that's so basically the rant part and everything was completely necessary, for me personally. Now, continuing on to the actual main episode, I love the fact that they actually incorporated a title card. I can't put that in here because I don't want Viacom to come in and sit there and be like, you used a screenshot of our video, copyright strike, or something like that. Let's be completely honest. I fucking hate that. I fucking hate copyright bullshit. Fuck those people. I'm getting off topic. This episode is just completely and utterly zany. Like, I don't even know where to even begin with this pasta. I mean, first we have the George Jetson. I mean, come on. He's a classic. Everybody knows you gotta at least include him at least one time in a funny pasta. So there's that. Then basically we have, everything just kind of going downhill immediately. We have the explicit scenery, which I'm gonna be honest with all of you, is kind of a downside with the story. I know I'm going to get some kind of backlash for saying this, but personally for me, I didn't like the excessive sexual talk in this pasta, specifically with Squidward and Krabby Patties and the clarinet going up Squidward's bum, and things like that, and pissing on the hands. It really isn't something I'm really too... I just don't like it, personally. I really don't. Another thing about this pasta that I will have to say that I'm not a major fan of is that this is obviously inspired and definitely has many elements from the original funny pasta this was based off of, called the Lost Shrek film. If you actually read the original Shrek film and this story, there's a lot of parallels to it. For example, the characters pissing on something, whether it be hands. Well, actually, they do piss on hands, but... one of them is like hands sticking out of the ground with Shrek, and this one basically is hands, from SpongeBob himself. The character sitting there and speaking, crazy German, which, again, I don't have too much of a problem with, but for me, it just, I don't know. I mean, it had Donkey sitting there and speaking, not speaking German, but talking in a German accent, and now it has this talking in a German accent, which, again, is another major parallel between those two stories. And, of course, I can't sit there and go out of my way and point out the ending of the story, specifically with the person going on and monologuing about skeletons, just like in the Shrek pasta, and basically everything else, with the food, the onions, all that kind of thing. It's literally the exact same story, just expanded on. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to knock the author from doing something like this. There's obviously inspiration, but personally for me, they're just doesn't seem to be a lot that... How do I put this? There doesn't exactly really seem to be a whole lot of, inclusion in this. And what I mean there doesn't seem to be a lot of originality to this. It just seems like, the Lost Shrek film, but a SpongeBob version of it. I will admit there are some things that were a little bit different, don't get me wrong. For example, the SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs, and Bill and all that, sitting there coming around, talking, all that. There are some things that are different, but overall, the episode in question, including the ending of this pasta, definitely just feels like more of a copy-paste, somewhat. I'm not saying plagiarism, I'm just saying it's kind of seems like a bit too much of a copy-paste, so to speak, for it to be different. Now, let me just say this right now for anybody who's considering writing creepypastas. It's one thing to be inspired with a story and the like, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to include a few things in there, that's fine. But the one thing you always need to do if you're going to take inspiration from a story is change it up a good bit, to the point where it's not obvious that you've, taken one of these things and just pasted it in there, so to speak. You need to sit there and try and change it up to a point where it's not similar to it, but there's definitely bits and pieces of it that are obviously inspired by that original scene. And that's one thing I genuinely believe this pasta could have definitely worked on a lot more. Well, that actually would have made this funny pasta a whole lot better, is if the story itself definitely, included a lot more originality to it, but throwing in a couple of old things from that Shrek pasta, in there. It would have been perfectly fine if, the DVD talking and things like that, and, maybe even the onions and all that. And granted, I'm not trying to tell people what they can and can't make, but it really does show a good bit that there's just a lot of copy-paste to it, to some degree. Again, I'm not trying to accuse the original author, and I apologize if, this does tick off a few people, but it's basically what I see. Especially sitting there and reading this now in 2020, compared to sitting there and reading it way back in 2017, it definitely shows a lot more compared to this episode and compared to the Shrek episode, so there's that. Another thing about the pasta in question that I wasn't too crazy about was, actually, you know what, scratch that. Those were really the main two things that I found to be kind of a problem with the story. Overall, my final thoughts with this pasta is that it's a very enjoyable, funny pasta, but there's definitely a lot, in my opinion, that, really needed to be worked on a little bit better in order for it to not seem like, okay, flat out, just gonna say it. The story has a lot of inspiration from the Shrek pasta, understandable, completely fine, but it takes way too much from that story and incorporates in here. That's what I'm basically trying to say. If it didn't incorporate too much of the original Shrek and only took like some parts of it and twisted it and made it in a way that's completely original, then I wouldn't have a problem with this in any way, shape, or form. And honestly, I'm kind of hoping, however, that the original author of said Shrek, the Shrek Lost episode, doesn't have a problem with this. I doubt that he or she probably does, but still. Because, yeah, I personally don't see this as being, plagiarism or whatever it may seem to be, but I could definitely see how people could potentially have problems with this. Overall, though, like I've said with these pastas, and like what I always will continue to say, it's only my stupid, dumb, personal opinion. I also want to apologize that this isn't my typical way of going out of my way and reviewing, but this is a funny pasta, so this is the exception rather than the rule. So yes, I combined everything all together, and I'm just kind of giving it from the heart, because I've read the story plenty of times to know what I'm trying to say. My final rating of the story would have to be a 5 out of 10. It's a funny story, it's humorous, it's interesting, I like it, but there's just too much from the Shrek pasta that really makes this story completely original. So I gotta sit there and knock it down. And I will knock it down for the overabundance of sex stuff too. Nothing against that kind of thing personally, it just wasn't my cup of tea. Personally. But what did you guys personally think about this funny pasta? Did you guys enjoy this? Did you guys not? Did you guys were your expectations for the story, lowered down since listening to this again? And what personally would you have done to make the story a lot better? Also, make sure of it personally to provide your own detailed review down in the description below, because the one thing that we want to do with this channel and things we want to do with each of these videos is to provide proper criticism for the people who make these stories in order to help them become better at what they do. Everyone, including anybody, funny pasta, creepypasta, whatever, can definitely improve a lot more, and I really hope that the author, in future pastas definitely, gets better at what they do. But yeah, it's a pretty funny story for what it is, but again, not entirely my cup of tea. Thanks again for watching today's episode, you guys. I'm sorry if this pasta thing was a huge mess. And if you're brand new here to this channel and you like what you see, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below because I make brand new content every single day. Also, make sure to hit the bell notification as well if you want to get brand new updates. I don't just sit there and do creepypastas, I do fanfiction narrations, kind of, sort of. And I also post artwork of mine on my community tab, so if you're interested and you want to check that out, maybe you want to give me a request for some art you want to sit there and see, let me know as well. Thanks again for watching today's episode, you guys. I'll be seeing y'all in the next video, and like always, roll the outro because I'm out. In fear and surprise as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping horde-driven nightmarish gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any day.